This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and Bob is back. For those of you who remember our very popular HP Spectre x360 review, that was a 13.3-inch Ultrabook that offered a lot of bang for the buck. For those of you looking for a classier built machine that didn't cost $2,000 or something like that. Well, for those of you who wanted something bigger, now there's the 15T model. This is the 15-inch version of Bob, or we hope it's Bob, which stands for best of the best, because that's what the 13.3-inch was when we first reviewed it. Just as thin, just as gorgeous. Intel 6th generation dual-core CPUs inside. This may be a 15-inch laptop, but this is not a quad-core powerhouse like the Dell XPS 15. Different kind of animal. However, this is one of the few 15.6-inch convertibles that also supports a pen. The Dell Inspira Online, you can get a convertible if you want, but Dell is dropping the pen support while HP is keeping it alive here. Integrated Intel graphics, your choice of 8 or 16 gigs of RAM. There's really two configurations, a 1349, which is the higher end model that we have here, and an 1149. The 1149 gets you a Core i5, 8 gigs of RAM, and a 256 gig SSD. Our more expensive model here ups that to Core i7, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 256 gig SSD all over again, but a 4K display instead of a 1080p display. So, is it all that? We're going to find out now. Well, sure, in some ways it is just a bigger Spectre, isn't it? To look at this without the context of size, you might think it was the 13-inch model. I'd say the bezels don't look quite so large on this, which is nice. You get the same keyboard, pretty much exactly right here, dished down for ergonomic comfort, and also so the keys don't hit the screen. But there is stereo speaker grills flanking both sides of the keyboard, sort of like the MacBook Pro 15 and 13-inch. It's not a bad idea, certainly, to have them firing at you instead of at the desk. That trackpad's still ginormous. HP kind of likes that supersized trackpad. I really have nothing against it, nor do I love it. The screen is reflective, as you can see here. Of course it is. It's a glossy screen. But given the fact that our 4K model screen isn't that bright, it's not that bad, really. You can still actually see even under bright lights, which is something good. At 16.9 millimeters, this is actually just as thin as the 13-inch model, too. And it's as good looking as ever. I mean, you've got that shiny metal on the sides there, contrasting with the matte metal of the rest of the laptop. It's good looking. The hinges there with the nice gears that keep the display firmly in place. It's all the same really high quality look that we liked about the original 13.3-inch Spectre x360. This is just the one for those of you who need and want more space. Like the 13-inch model, you can see we still have the two kind of mating circles, and it's really a neat design here. You have the Spectre logo etched on the back, and the chromed metal covers over the geared hinges to protect the hinges, obviously, and these are really nice, stiff geared hinges. Not much wobble, relatively speaking, for a convertible. Of course, all convertibles wobble a little bit. So on the side, we have where the charger plugs in, some ventilation over here, USB 3 port, your combo headphone jack. Here's the power button. They always do this with convertibles because you might be using it in tablet presentation or tent modes where you don't have access to a power button on the keyboard deck. And there's our SD card slot. And again, that nice sharply cut off side looking metal right here. Gorgeous looking, but not really painfully sharp or anything to touch. It's very well machined. They do a beautiful job here. And that silver band goes all the way around. We got the little lift up area for the display, and it's pretty stiff. You really want to use two hands to open it up, but you can get it started like that. And on this side over here, these are side volume controls, again, in case you're not using it in laptop mode and you want to adjust your volume. A USB-C port. HP says this is still USB 3.0, not 3.1. Again, we have a video about the confusion that is USB-C and Thunderbolt 3. This is not Thunderbolt 3. This is not even USB-C 3.1, just 3.0. I did test it with some of our adapters for displays. It didn't work, but it does do pass-through for USB devices like hard drives and USB Ethernet adapters. Well. Two more USB conventional type 3.0 ports right here, a mini display port and an HDMI port. Always appreciate having both of those, especially because HDMI is good for those of you who are using higher resolution displays. You can do a 4K display at 60 Hz refresh rate with the mini display port. So good to have that there. Now the chassis is what you would call unibody aluminum or aluminum alloy metal, but that doesn't mean you can't take off the bottom cover, which you can. Torx T5 screws hold the bottom cover on. No difficult, challenging clips. There's little metal clips on there to get it off, and you want to work out the front before you take off the back, because there's a piece that actually curves underneath the hinges a little bit. Anyway, it's pretty easy to take this off for upgrades. Ventilation over here, it does not get too hot. I know some people thought the 13-inch got a little bit toasty, especially the Core i7. Metal does conduct heat, but still, there's more space here for cooling and all that sort of thing. I've never had it get burning hot so far. Now, notice there's more speaker grills here. Isn't that interesting? This is not a quad audio system. What it does is if you switch it out of laptop position, it'll switch to using these speakers instead because, well, you know, the other ones may be facing away from you at that point. It's an interesting idea. Bang & Olufsen audio, and there's a big logo on the top deck. You know, I don't know what it is with HP and audio. They always partner with big names like they used to do Beats. Now they're doing Bang & Olufsen, and no matter what, you have pretty mousy sounding speaker audio, despite the big speaker grills on the top keyboard deck. Through headphones, it sounds really good, and it's not that it's bad, it's just not really very loud. It's like they're afraid we're going to make ourselves deaf or something. Anyway, we'll show you a picture of the internals in a minute. It's pretty straightforward stuff. If you took the original Spectre x360 and just gave it a little bit more room, that's what you'd have. Mostly, there's a battery in here that takes up a good deal of space. You have an M2 SSD slot. It's a SATA 3 interface. I don't know if it supports PCIe for those of you who want a hot rod and put a faster SSD in there. My guess is it may not. RAM is soldered on board. Whether you get 8 or 16 gigs, there's no RAM slot in here. The Wi-Fi card is socketed, and that's something you might foreseeably want to upgrade. It's Intel 7265 AC Wi-Fi, which is last generation Wi-Fi. We've seen ASUS do the same thing, and it's mysterious. Why they're not using Intel 8260, which is the latest generation that should be paired with Skylake, I don't know. I find 8260 a little bit more robust and reliable, but this is not a bad Wi-Fi solution, and it does have Bluetooth as well. The keyboard, like the 13-inch model we reviewed, you know, it doesn't have sculpted keys or anything like that, but it has good travel, nice damping, and even though when you type on it, you think, well, this is nothing special, it's actually a pretty decent keyboard. It works quite well. Obviously, there's no number pad here, but they do use the space for those speakers on the side, so that's cool. Same thing with the backlighting. Now, this is available only in natural silver currently, the original 13-inch color. There's no ash silver, which was really the almost black on the keyboard deck, the copper accents, that sort of thing, that makes the keyboard more visible. Now, in very good lighting like this, it's absolutely fine. And in the darkness with the backlighting on, it's very good. It's that in-between thing where it wants to turn the backlighting on, and then you've got kind of whitish backlighting on light silver keys, and they start to disappear. Fortunately, there is a little button on the keyboard you can use to turn off that backlighting in those kind of dim but not dark lighting situations. It is what it is. They continue to use that silver keyboard because it's pretty, and that's the price that we pay. The trackpad, as we mentioned, is again one of those supersized ones that HP thinks is better, gives you more room for gestures, they figure, something like that. It doesn't bother me, it doesn't add anything, but it does respond well. It's a nice trackpad, it's reliable, it doesn't do anything flaky. It's not as good as, say, the Microsoft Surface Book or the Dell XPS 15 trackpads. Those Microsoft Precision trackpads are really, really good, but then you do give up some of the advanced gestures and multi-touch kind of fancy things, too, that you do get with the HP. This is available with two different display options. The 1149 comes with a 1920 by 1080 display, touchscreen, support for the HP Active Stylus, just like the 13-inch model, or for $60 more if you're doing a build your own on HP's website, you can go up to 4K. That's a big jump, isn't it? And that's what we have here. And nowadays, Windows, generally speaking, programs handle scaling nicely. Windows itself does, so it's not a liability, really, other than the fact it does put a little bit more stress on the Intel HD 520 integrated graphics. By the way, if you do a build to order, apparently HP lists an option to get Iris graphics with the higher-end Core i7, though I couldn't actually find a configuration that was available like that yet. They'll give you a little extra graphics oomph. Anyway, for this sort of machine, I don't think you really need it. The display itself, the 4K display, this is sort of like the same thing we saw with the 13-inch, only there you had your choice between a 2K or a 1080p display. It's not that bright. Now, it's also glossy and reflective too, but as you can see on this video, it's doing okay. You can see the screen despite our bright studio lights, but it only measured 164 nits of brightness. A lot of laptops are doing 250, even 300 these days. Obviously, HP is trying to save some power. In terms of color gamut, it's good though. We got 99% of sRGB here and 75% of Adobe RGB, which is typical for your $1,000 and up kind of laptop. So color representation is good. The gamma is a little bit off, a little bit too low, but it's correctable, and it's certainly a nice display for photo and video editing. It's pretty color accurate, it's pleasant, it's zingy. As long as you don't plan on using it in super bright places where you might have a little trouble not being able to get the screen as bright as you want, it's pretty nice. So how about the pen? Again, like the 13-inch, it supports the pen. You don't have to buy a special model of Spectre to get the pen support. The X360 just does. This is what the pen looks like right here. The HP Active Stylus. This is what the box looks like. HP Stylus, right there. And it says on there for Spectre x360, so that's going to help you find it. And this guy costs $60. Best Buy stocks it if you happen to be in the United States and you're looking for one. So not the cheapest pen, and it's still the same pen that works with the original X360 13.3-inch, aka Bob. This is a Synaptics digitizer. That also means that Dell's Active Stylus, the one that I said I liked better in our X360 original review, does still work too. And in fact, I do still like it a little bit better. Now, that's what that package looks like for the Dell brand one. It's about $10 cheaper. But the challenge is because Dell is dropping the Synaptics digitizer from their products, you probably won't have as easy a time finding it. You might as well just get the HP Active Stylus. The difference isn't that big. You get some side buttons here. Sorry, no eraser on the end. And Synaptics is an active digitizer, and it has pressure level sensitivity and palm rejection. I am resting my hand on the screen now. You get a little hover tip here so you can kind of see what you're doing. And for handwriting, this works fine. We're in OneNote right now, and despite my terrible, terrible handwriting, this is fine. If I want to sketch, let's do the usual Apple here, it's okay. And actually, OneNote tracks better than some art programs. It's not up there with N-Trig on the Surface Pro 4 or the Surface Book. It's not up there with Wacom EMR and AES digitizers. If you're an artist, I would say you probably still want to look at something like the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Yoga with Wacom AES, or the Surface products, or even if you don't need something that's a computer also, there's the iPad Pro. Now for art, let's see how it behaves. This is Clip Studio Paint. Again, I'm resting my hand on the glass, and the pressure curves are just a little bit off, and you can see the lines trailing where I'm drawing. So what normally would be a pretty easy thing for me to do, to sketch somebody's face, is becoming, I have to go over the lines a couple of different times. It sometimes misses it. It's okay. It's certainly not hideous, but it wouldn't be, again, my first choice. But you can do it, and that gets into why the Spectre as a 15-inch product actually even exists, because there are plenty of 15-inch laptops. HP's own NV15 models, some of them with more power and all that sort of thing, but there are very few convertibles, and particularly convertibles with pens, so I can understand why artists would want to look at this. And again, it's not terrible. There's no tilt support on Synaptics, sorry. It's just not super primo, but you know, it does work. Now again, we have the Core i7 15-watt dual-core Ultrabook CPU in here, despite the 15-inch size. This is not a quad-core. Just want to underscore that because I know a lot of people think bigger means more cores means faster. Still, for a Core i7 Ultrabook CPU, this scores very nicely. As you can see here in Geekbench 3, 3335 for the single core, 7033 for the multi-core test, of course roughly double because there are 2 cores here. So that's a perfectly respectable score. It computed pi in 16.6 seconds using W prime. Again, that's just about what we would expect for a machine with this specification. And for PC Mark 8, you can see here 2738 for the home accelerated test. That's pretty good. The funny thing is that we just also benchmarked the Samsung Notebook 9, a 1.85-pound 13.3-inch laptop with the Core i5, and it actually scored a little bit higher. This factors in a bunch of things, and one of those things would be the fact that this is driving a 4K display again, and that Samsung was only driving a 1080p display. So I would actually expect if you buy this with the 1080p display that you're probably actually going to see a little bit faster benchmark numbers. Now again, this just has Intel HD 520 integrated graphics, so don't expect miracles in the graphic benchmark department. For 3D Mark 11, for the performance score, that's the 720p test, 1557 as you can see here. It's scored 430 on the extreme test. Again, Ultrabook-like performance, but that's enough for a lot of folks. Now, as I've been underscoring the fact that this is an Ultrabook CPU, 15 watt, that's just because there are options for those of you who do need horsepower. For those of you who are just doing the usual productivity work, MS Office, web, email, streaming Netflix, using Photoshop, even, Photoshop with a nice digital SLR camera, raw file, that sort of thing, 1080p video editing, unless you're doing it professionally day in, day out, it's absolutely fine for all of that stuff. But for those of you who do need more, you're heavy-duty number crunchers, you're compiling very large programs, you do professional video editing or semi-professional video editing, you're doing 4K, there are options like the Dell XPS 15, and you can see how it looks compared right there. A little smaller footprint, because that's what Dell does, but it is a bit thicker. Now keep in mind with this Dell, with the Asus ZenBooks, with the MSI Phantom and Ghost thin and light laptops, they are just conventional laptops though. For those of you who want the convertible design, I can't underscore enough, you're not going to get that with something like the XPS 15. It's just a conventional laptop. You can get a touchscreen, sure. Also, the XPS 15 is more expensive, generally speaking, especially if you want to get that 4K display, just like the HP has. You're going to be spending $1,600 to $2,000 on it. So the HP at $1,149 to $1,349 is relatively reasonable. It's also one of the lightest. That's one of the benefits of having an Ultrabook. Less cooling, less heavy hardware inside. It's 4.1 pounds. Very light, even lighter than the XPS, which is certainly a light machine. Now, for those of you who do know you want a convertible, and this is a 14-inch. This is the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Yoga. Now, this too has Ultrabook CPUs inside, but for those of you who want a better pen experience, this has the new Wacom AES pen. In fact, there's a little pen that lives on the side. You can get a bigger one. You're looking at pretty much the same horsepower and performance here, better pen experience, same processing performance. That's the thing with these convertibles. Very rarely do you see anything like heavy-duty dedicated graphics or quad-core CPUs inside. Okay, so just how do those speakers sound? And we'll see how this looks when it plays video. This is our site mobile tech review, and this is our review of the Razer Blade Stealth. And let's take a look at our video review and listen to it so you can hear the speakers for yourself. That's 66% volume there. This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Razer Blade Stealth. This is a 12.5-inch Ultrabook. And Razer, well, we know them for making the Blade and the Blade Pro gaming laptops that came at a premium price. It's not bad. It's okay. It's just, they make a big deal of the Bang & Olufsen audio, and it's, I would say, average sounding. But it looks nice. It certainly looks very nice. It's a pleasing enough screen. Another benefit of having low-power Ultrabook CPU inside should be battery life. Now, this is driving a 4K display, and 4K displays notoriously do use more power, as do touchscreens, which this obviously also has. That said, since it's not the brightest of displays, battery life hasn't been bad on this, about 6.5 to 7 hours. And that's for productivity work and some streaming video, not for trying to play games, not for doing 1080p video processing. Your battery life is going to be shorter for those sort of things. The 4-cell battery inside, as you saw from the picture of the guts that we showed you, it takes up a whole lot of what the laptop actually has inside. The charger also doesn't have to be one of those humongous power bricks that you see with dedicated graphics machines. That's a trivially teeny charger. I was kind of shocked at how small that thing is. It's a 45-watt charger, which is adequate for this kind of machine, though, so it's perfectly fine. I wouldn't mind more cord on it, though. That's just not the longest cord, but good God, it is teeny and light. You won't really mind carrying that around. So that's the HP Spectre x360, the 15T version, the 15-inch, or 15.6-inch to be exact. It is really a lovely machine, again, for the price, but we are looking at some stiff competition for those of you who are looking at 15.6-inch laptops, even the thin and light kind, like again the Dell XPS 15, the Asus ZenBook UX501, even the MSI GS40 Phantom that we recently reviewed. Now, it really depends what kind of machine you're looking for. If you like the thin and light design, this is going to be one of the lightest at 4.1 pounds, and you don't have super duper processing needs. You don't want to be playing Call of Duty for hours on it, but you do like the flexibility of the 360-degree hinge, the optional pen that works with this. There are a few actually that compete with it, and certainly a few that are really this beautifully made. It may not be perfect, but it's pretty easy to recommend. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full written review and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos.